Hey everybody, we're back. No Name Cinema Society, our 26th meeting of the No Name Cinema Society, and this is part 2, our indie spotlight for the evening. And of course, we're a little bit late, and just on a night when we've got a very complicated movie to discuss. We're talking about A Dangerous Method tonight, as you can see in my little graphic right here. I'm Jonathan Betzler. I'm one of your hosts, and really, it should be my name up there right now. I messed that up, but who cares? And we've got our own versions of Young and Freud here with us tonight. First of all, our own Carl Jung type person. This is Dave Joseph.
What's up?
How you doing, Dave?
Fantastic.
Are you drunk?
Dave, as you might have seen earlier, you might already know that Dave just got back from Houston. He was at the Final Four.
It was a good time.
And also our very own Sigmund Freud type figure, ladies and gentlemen. The well-coiffed J Money. Stroke that beard for me, J Money.
Yeah. Now, why am I the Freud of the two of us?
I'll let you guys analyze that. So to speak.
Analyze that.
Yeah, see what I did there?
Different movie. Different movie.
Anyway, so just to get back around to this, the trivia that led up to this evening. The first question that I put on our last broadcast was that it was a Canadian dude, Canadian director with an American actor and an Irish actor about a Swiss dude and a famous Austrian. So that would be Canadian director David Cronenberg, guiding Irish actor Michael Fassbender, and American actor Viggo Mortensen in a movie about a relationship between Swiss Carl Jung and Austrian Sigmund Freud. The other trivia question that we had online on Facebook this past week or so, or just a few days ago, I think, right, Jamie? This film was adapted from a play, but from a playwright whose most famous play was adapted into a film in 1988. Did you know the answer to that, by the way, J Money?
No, I didn't actually.
Did you see the trivia question, Davy Joe?
We do trivia?
All right, and that's Drunk Davy, everybody. So anyway, this Dangerous Method was adapted from a play called The Talking Cure. The play was written by Christopher Hampton. He also adapted the screenplay. Christopher Hampton is probably most famous for a play he wrote called a play he adapted called Dangerous Liaisons, which was made into a movie in 1988, and is coming back to Broadway either in the fall or early winter of 2017, starring Liev Schreiber and Janet McTeer. So Dangerous Liaisons is on its way back, and that's one of my all-time favorites. So that might, explain some of the feelings I have about this particular movie. You guys ready for the summary?
Yeah.
Going right into it, because a lot to talk about with this movie, I think. So let's get started as quickly as possible. All right. So in A Dangerous Method, a beautiful and challenging patient played by Keira Knightley leads Dr. Carl Jung on the right there to seek the help of his more famous counterpart, Sigmund Freud, as played by Viggo Mortensen on the left there. They establish a bond, part colleagues, part father-son. The relationship gets complicated when Jung gives into his urges to get sexually involved with his beautiful, dynamic, troubled patient. So anyway, this is my movie for recommendation, and it is right up my alley, quite frankly. If you talk about you talk about character-driven dramas, and you talk about period pieces, historical dramas, like as you might have guessed on this show, that is my kind of thing. And the screenplay, I personally think that it is amazingly rich. It's layered, and the performances, particularly these two. I think we've discovered in this show that Michael Fassbender can do no wrong, and Keira Knightley, I think, earlier Davy Joe said Criminal was the performance of Kevin Costner's career. I personally think this is the performance of Keira Knightley's career. I am amazed and disappointed that she wasn't nominated for an Academy Award. She was my choice for the Best Supporting Actress of 2011. The other point I wanted to make about this movie, I think the detail and the mise-en-scène is incredible, especially on such a low budget. The editing is really well done, sharp and brisk. The scenes were done methodically and slow, but the transitions were very fast and intelligent. I did have some issues with some of the cinematography and some of the direction, which I can talk about later on. Before I get to these guys' thoughts, I happened to have people over for one of our classic movie screenings, and I'm like, hey, I have to rewatch this movie for the show. Do you guys want to stick around? So people actually stuck around, and I have some feedback here. I think everybody liked the story. People didn't like Keira Knightley as much as I did. I mean, but I think it was a very external thing. They just didn't like the accent. They particularly didn't like the fact that she was the only one with an accent, even though they were all different nationalities. Something that we can maybe unpack a little bit. They also didn't like Sarah Gadon, but I think that was more about not liking the character instead of the performance. And for all the things that the movie covers, I guess we got into a discussion of how they wanted it to feature more religious thoughts, more meditation on religion. I personally feel like that might have oversaturated the film a little bit. So anyway, so you've got my thoughts and why I'm recommending it, and also I wanted to mix in what some of the people at the screening thought. So, Davey, I assume was this your first time watching this movie?
Yeah, in fact, I had never even heard of it before.
Look at you, and you usually are pretty on top of these things.
Yeah, well, it was in a different time of my life, but no, I am.
All right, well, why don't you give me your opening thoughts?
No, I thought it was a fantastic film, and I loved it, and I echo your sentiments with Keira Knightley. I thought the performance was amazing.
All right, so let's go to the hater, Jay Money.
No, I certainly didn't hate this. I thought it was a pretty good film. I think for me the strongest aspect of it was probably the performances, and on your point, I think that Keira Knightley did a great job, and I tend to flip back and forth between people that play crazy very, widely, so I came out on the pro side with how she handled it in this case.
Yeah, well, I mean, she also has this. I mean, getting performances a little earlier than I intended, but I mean, like she has this back and forth thing. I mean, like, and even as she's getting better, you can still feel some of the residual effects is the phrase I'm looking for of what's going on with her.
Yeah, she never lets it get out of control, and I think that's a really big part of it.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the screenplay. What did you guys feel about the screenplay?
Well, okay, I'll go first.
Yeah. I don't care who goes first.
I try to let David Joe jump in whenever he wants. I'm trying to figure out how to put this. I liked it. I thought I liked the fact that it didn't try to make them into caricatures, which I think a movie like this would possibly be guilty of, especially since we're talking about these really sort of big names that everybody has some opinion about, even if they don't really know anything about the personal histories of. But I also felt like it was a very just straightforward script, and maybe that's because I went into it thinking like, oh, it's a Cronenberg film ahead of time, that influenced my reaction to how it played out. But I thought it was a very competent screenplay. I thought it was it was well crafted by far. I had no real problems with it. I just thought at the end of the day it was also pretty cut and dry for me. I don't know how you feel.
I mean, I just think it's so intelligent. You know what I mean? Like, and certainly, coming from a playwright background, Christopher Hampton is going to have that. And if you want to argue it's maybe too erudite, then maybe that discussion could be had. But I mean, like, certainly, it combines science and character in a way that we wish Criminal had. And I know it's a weird thing to think about, but I mean, think about how foreign psychotherapy was to people of the time. It was almost, you can almost make the analogy that psychotherapy was, I mean, this movie takes place in the early 20th century, but imagine the late 19th century, psychotherapy was to them what maybe this brain transfusion thing is to us, like seemingly far-fetched. And so there's a connection between these two movies potentially, and I think the science, and the character detail in the screenplay. And I think about, I don't know the picture with me, but I think about scenes with Otto, like some of those long scenes where they're unpacking a lot of things. And also, like, the other thing I like about the screenplay is it covers so much, and we'll get to that in a second. David Joe, in terms of themes, David Joe, what do you think?
Well, as far as the screenplay goes, I thought the screenplay was excellent, and I think the thing that really kind of sticks out to me is the fact that this relationship between Jung and Freud, it goes downhill, but it goes downhill at a pace in a way that it's very gradual, and it's very realistic. You can kind of see, like, you know, there's a problem here, and then there's a problem there, and then and they're working through it, and it just seems very, very realistic and believable to me that there is no like turning point. It's just a gradual, you know, it just all kind of gradually falls apart in a very believable and interesting way.
Rebuttal, J Money?
No, I don't have a rebuttal with that. I think that's absolutely true. There's a lot of really wonderful restraint in this movie that I appreciate quite a bit, both in terms of the presentation the characters gave, but also the screenplay itself really kind of goes through a lot of it has a lot of nuances.
And you could argue that the director David Cronenberg, who's not known for restraint necessarily, you could suggest that that's a credit to him as well.
It is a credit to him, definitely. I mean, this was definitely a Cronenberg film. There's a lot in this film that's very Cronenberg, including the basic concept. I mean, he is the king of sort of psychosexual content within film, but he's also been doing a lot more screen in the last, I don't know.
David Cronenberg crowned right here. He's a king.
But having said that, I don't want to. I don't want to sound like a dickhole about this. I just thought it was a little fluffy, even. I guess I don't know. I don't want to
you're really gonna have to unpack fluffy for me, because I'm not sure what you mean by that, because it certainly didn't feel like easy in any way. Like you know.
I don't know. I don't know
what you mean by fluffy.
Well, I guess I do mean easy in a way.
Okay. I disagree with that. I mean, I felt like the characters were really challenged, and the situations were challenging and complicated.
Well, okay, then what do you mean when you say easy?
Well, I mean, like, I was really trying to take a guess at what you meant by fluffy, so...
I meant the story. I meant the story itself, to me, felt a little fluffy. It felt a little easy, and also felt like there were some questionably glib moments in it. There were a little few too many Beaumonts for me, personally. There was some stuff that just, was a little light on its toes, I guess. It wasn't necessarily a really heady sort of movie for me. It was enjoyable. I just didn't think it was a very...
I do find it very heady, and I guess that's a segue into my next conversation, because I wanted to unpack some of these themes, and with our limited time left, I guess we got 3.5 minutes, but I wanted to, I mean, like, and we don't have to talk about them all, but I mean, like, things that I was thinking about, I mean, like, obviously a large one is sex and sexuality, both in terms of repression, we had a large discussion about monogamy afterwards with the people that were here. Also, like, the toll and side effects of medical research, that and that could go back to the criminal as well, like the playing God type thing. Like, it's not as technical here. There's not as much technology involved with it, but it's more like mental. And also the idea of the mystery of the human mind. Trying to they're almost like explorers in this way, or that's the impression that the movie gave me. And then to top it all off, the father-son dynamic. Sort of pseudo father-son dynamic between Freud and Jung. So I feel like there's a lot going on in this movie, and there's a little religion, like the people wanted more of that. But there's even a little religion mixed into that whole thing, and not even just not even just like Christianity. I mean, they were talking about ancient Egyptian religion at one point, and sort of using those figures to apply their psychoanalytic techniques on. So with that in mind, I mean, like, I feel like it's a very layered, rich screenplay, and I mean, like, easy and fluffy feels so far from, and maybe this is a miscommunication, maybe I'm not understanding you properly, but I mean, like, this movie feels complex emotionally to me, and that seems far from fluffy.
There wasn't from my point of view, there wasn't really anything to figure out with this movie. I guess I feel like everything was very well explained, and to the credit I think that you're talking about, like the science in this movie was really well handled in terms of how they explained it between the characters. I mean, there was never a point here that was confusing. There wasn't necessarily a lot, it wasn't like they tried to make it sound harder to understand than it is.
Okay, but I don't think the movie comes to a conclusion as to who's right and who's wrong between Freud and Jung. I mean, like, I know what modern science would say about it, but I don't think that the movie necessarily lands one place or another on that.
But do you feel like that's a major question that you have with the movie? Because that wasn't necessarily a concern for me.
Well, I mean, I think the movie, certainly that's the heart of the issues between them. Like Davy Joe talked about the breaking down of their relationship. I mean, I think a lot of that is about, like, the break in their viewpoints, and how they sort of diverge.
But I don't think we're supposed to decide that one's right and one's wrong.
Well, I mean, like you were saying, no, maybe I don't think you're supposed to necessarily do anything. I'm saying you're saying there was nothing to figure out. I mean, because I mean, like I had a group here, so we discussed it, you know, and so there's definitely it felt, you know, definitely people had thoughts and questions. So it definitely, when you said there's nothing to figure out, I mean, I definitely feel like there is room for interpretation.
Okay.
So do you? I mean, like, and again, I feel like we're talking in circles, and I feel like we're not understanding each other. But I don't
Possibly.
know.
Possibly.
But I mean, like, do you disagree with that statement about it? There's room for interpretation.
I don't know. Well, what were you guys trying to interpret?
I mean, like I think we're trying to. I mean, like you were interpreting like some of the themes and like where the questions they were asking about monogamy. Like that was a big part of it. As time is running out. I mean, like, and also, I mean, one line that we talked about a lot that we thought was really interesting was, it takes the wounded. Fassbender Young says it takes the wounded doctor to heal, and I thought that was a fascinating concept. And so that sort of sparked its own conversation. So I don't know if that counts as interpreting, but it certainly sparked, you know, interest in conversation.
Oh yeah, I think there's plenty in this movie that would spark interesting conversation. That's certainly not what I would, you know, I wouldn't suggest otherwise. I just meant for me, I guess I felt like there was never anything there was never any real conflict for me in this movie. I mean, there was, you were watching these you know, kind of complicated relationships unfold, but I feel like you always kind of knew where things were going. I guess I feel like there wasn't necessarily a lot that was up for grabs.
What about, I mean, like there's a lot of internal conflict, like Young, should he leave his wife if he's really in love with his patient? Is he really in love with his patient? What's drawing him to her?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something real there, or is it just, you know, this desire to be rebellious, you know, and also like I mean, I think I was, you know, like the toll of knowledge. I mean, in the case of Otto, like knowledge seemed to weigh on him to the point of creating his own neuroses and issues. So I don't know. I just feel like this movie is stacked with stuff, and I don't have a lot of time. But David, Joe, can you just sort of break the tie, or at least, you know, let us know where you think about this?
Well, no, JB, I definitely come down on your side in this one. I think that it's a tremendously complex film, and it's one that kind of left me thinking as well. I think that they do kind of, the movie does kind of let you sort of decide whether Freud or Jung, you know, was right or had the moral, scientific, ethical high ground, you know, and I mean those all partitioned as three separate issues. You know, I found myself sort of siding with Freud and kind of disliking Jung by the time it was over. So I don't know. I like the movie quite a bit, and it's one that I can see myself watching again just to kind of revisit it.
That's really interesting that you would feel that way about it, because I mean, like I feel oppositely. But I mean, like I also more ascribe to Jung, generally speaking, in life too. So, but I mean, like one more thing I want to get to, like my main flaw with this movie that I had forgotten all about when I recommended it, but upon rewatching, and I don't like the use of this lens to begin with, and Jay Money knows this is coming, I think, but throughout this movie they use a diopter lens. And I don't know if you guys, I mean, like, are familiar with what that means, but basically this is a lens split down the middle so that they can have two different focal lengths. So that both these guys are in focus, as you can see here, even though they're sitting far apart, that you couldn't do with the normal lens.
Right.
Greg Toland was able to do it in black and white film in the late 30s, early 40s, in films like Grapes of Wrath and Citizen Kane and Magnificent Ambersons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, great cinematographers, it's possible, deep focus they call that. This is sort of like a modern cheat in order to get deep focus. But a quiz show did it a lot in 1994. Didn't like it then either. I mean, like, I love the idea of deep focus, but this feels very unnatural to me, especially when cut amongst everything else. So this was an issue with me, and I guess it's trying to connect the characters. because it's mainly done, I think, with these two, with Freud and Jung. And I think I can guess that maybe they're, by not keeping one in focus, by keeping them both in focus, it's not taking sides per se. Like I can make that argument. It's a guess, but anyway, I just wanted to point that out as a little flaw that I have with it. Do you guys have any feelings about this one way or the other before we go?
I mean, it was very noticeable to me, and I guess it's noticeable for the same reason that you're talking about it. It's very unnatural. Certainly, it's a strong stylistic decision. I think that they used it so much it felt heavy-handed, because I agree with you. I think the point of them doing the shot was that it was trying to say, here are these two important characters sharing the same space, and we have to make sure that they're equally weighted, and we have to make it intimate for them to be in their own headspace, essentially. It would have been okay if they had just done it a little more sparingly, perhaps, but it became a thing that I felt like was maybe a little bit too much.
Yeah. Any thoughts, David Joe? 20 seconds.
I liked it.
All right, now I need to give you 5 more seconds, because why?
No, it was neat. I could see again though. I tend to like sort of interesting things with the camera, and I think that you find them to be distracting and can kind of take you out of the film a little bit. And
it depends. I just want them to serve the narrative, and in this case, like I guess it was serving the narrative, but I did think it was distracting. But I mean, like, I will almost, it's almost like voiceover. I will almost always come down against the diopter. Anyway, so let's move on. Next week's indie. I put the trivia away. Okay, next week's indie is from a director of a film that was a Best Picture Oscar winner in the '90s. Although he did not win Best Director, it might give it away. And he's in our next movie, he goes back to his independent roots for this 2011 dramatic thriller. That's the next indie, and that's going to be May 3rd at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. And next up right here tonight is the film that's behind me. I'm leaning the wrong way. We're going Goodfellas. We're going to break it down. I screened it at my Oscar movie marathon, so we're going to in February. So we're going to talk about it right now in about probably 6 to 7 minutes. We'll be a little bit late. So look for us at 9 Eastern, 9:05 Eastern-ish, 6:05 Pacific. I also have to use the restroom. So anyway, so that's coming up very shortly. We'll see you then.